Good morning. Thought I'd give you a little update since I haven't spoken in a while. But crazy thing, Lonnie and I came out here along the Salmon River in Unit 15. As you can see, it's beautiful. It's like Hell's Gate, Hell's Canyon Wilderness area. A lot more open, trees in the cuts, and you know, bears are back in these hills. I mean, not right here by the highway, but this is definitely glassable and callable area. Anyways, we took the Little Salmon River back about 6-7 miles, maybe 8 miles, and then we got off on a dirt road by Alice Campground, and we were 17 miles back in when all of a sudden heard this super loud noise underneath my Jeep. Sounded like the drive shaft broke. Sounded like I dropped an axle. And we're like, what the heck was that? I stopped the Jeep on the dirt road, got out, looked underneath it, couldn't see anything wrong. Opened up the hood, and whatever it was, I noticed that the clutch fan wasn't engaging when I turned on the vehicle. It wasn't spinning, and that helps cool the engine. And I looked closer, it's like, what the heck? The fan blades on the clutch fan had hit the inside metal frame inside of my Jeep. Somehow I hit a rock, and a rock got, you know, there was only one rock on the road, and it got thrown up underneath my hood. I don't know how it happened, but it hit my clutch fan and kind of shifted it. And the fan was now, the blades had hit my inside metal frame and had somehow broken the clutch assembly. It wasn't going to spin. So, you know, we turned around. Luckily, we made it 17 miles down the hill to Riggins, and at Riggins, we found out there was only one mechanic in town, and he was at a Chevron station, and he closed at 5 o'clock, which was only 10 minutes away. So we rushed in, got there just before closing time, and the mechanic and one of his workers, one of his buddies, they kind of helped us assess the situation, and we had a huge problem. You know, we can't drive the Jeep because it wouldn't cool like that. So we had to get a clutch fan. They didn't have any clutch fans in town. They didn't have any in Grangerville. And like 47 miles away in McCall, they do have one clutch fan that fits my Jeep. So I told the guy to reserve it. And the main mechanic left the shop because it closed. And one of the helpers, Jared, was working on his mother-in-law's Jeep. So he let me use some tools, and we went to pull my clutch fan, and it was so tight inside of my hood space that it was literally pushing against my radiator. And as we were trying to get it out, he gave one bang with a hammer, and one of the clutch fan little arms cut into my radiator and started leaking, and all my fluids leaked out. So now I have to find a radiator and a shroud fan for my Jeep. Hopefully the one auto store in McCall's has one. So it seemed like things were going from bad to worse. And then they have a whitewater rafting festival in town. So out of the 5 motels in town, everyone was full. So we had nowhere to stay last night, and I was talking with the last motel owner, and he had pity on us, and he gave us a ride out to a BLM campground on the river. So we camped here last night, and super nice guy, super cool. He's gonna come back out and pick us up, take us into town, and I might be able to talk the guy into giving me a ride to McCall, or letting me borrow his vehicle to drive into McCall, see if I can get the parts. If they have them, if I can find a radiator up there. And the guy at Chevron felt bad for breaking my radiator. He wanted to pay for it, but he'll let me use the tools, and I'm going to replace it myself. I just got to find the parts and somehow find a way to get them and bring them back here. And some guy who lives behind Chevron has a Jeep, actually. I don't know what year, but he came by and said, hey, if you can't find the parts, I got a Jeep and you can just take the parts off my Jeep. So again, really nice people in town here. But it's like McCall's, they have one auto shop too, and they don't have any appointments till 3 weeks away. And if I go 60 miles back the other direction to Grangerville, they have an appointment a week from now. And here in Riggins, they have an appointment like on Tuesday maybe, but it's like Lonnie has to be back home by then. And I can't just sit here and wait 2 or 3 weeks, so it's just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And instead of being upset or angry, I actually feel lucky and blessed, because if I didn't turn around when I heard that big loud noise, everything seemed fine. I would have kept going further and further back on the mountain. And then who knows if my Jeep would have started right? Who knows, where we'd be abandoned. At least we're abandoned and stuck in a small town where people are nice. So, silver lining. And, just gotta figure out a plan to get it fixed. So sorry for the long monologue, but that's where we're at. The hunt's over, and now we're in repair mode, trying to get things fixed and get back home. Captain's log, star date, Saturday. It's been a crazy 24 hours. Like I said, my Jeep got disabled outside of Riggins, near the Little Salmon River. It was crazy, but I tell you what, honestly and sincerely, my faith in humanity has been restored. I met some of the kindest people in Idaho. We're talking small town America with good values, just willing to help somebody out. Like I said, not a motel in town had any room. And the last motel, I told the guy, it's like, this is my situation. I'm in a bind. And he's just like, let me help you out. He called every motel, even though I'd already been there. They had no vacancies. And he took Liney and I, drove us, 2.5 miles out of town to a BLM campground on the river. At the river, I, talked with a guy that, spends half his time in Alaska, half his time in Scottsdale, Arizona. Gave us a couple water bottles. I talked to another guy, he gave us a couple water bottles. And then I met this guy in the morning. He was just walking by our camp, and I kind of waved at him just to be friendly. The dude came over, started chatting and talking about a 31-inch salmon he just landed, that morning in the river. Started talking with this guy, and he was pretty cool, 64 years old. And then I started telling him my dilemma and trying to get parts in McCall 60 miles away. And he's just like, I'll give you a ride. You can take my truck. I've already caught my fish for the day. It's one fish for the limit. And so this guy, man, he was cooler than heck and super kind, and he drove us up to McCall. And in the meantime, Jeff, the owner of the motel, he came by last night in the middle of the night, like 11 o'clock, and he said, hey, is this Keith's camp? And he goes, hey, a person just canceled, so I have a room tonight. He goes, I'll take you guys back into town. You can have the room free of charge. And we were like, man, we're so tired. We're already in our tent with the sleeping bags. We're just ready to pass out. But thanks for the offer. The guy was going to, let us stay there for free. And then he came up in the morning to check in with us to see how we were doing, and told him, hey, this kind guy is taking us to McCall. So I bought the guy lunch today. And while we're going to McCall, a guy who lives behind the Chevron gas station, he had an old Cherokee in his front yard. He's just like, yeah, you can take parts off of this if they don't have them there. He was going to give me parts, and the parts didn't fit, and getting a new radiator was going to take at least minimum until Tuesday to get it, so we wouldn't leave until Wednesday. And the guy's like, I can try to solder your radiator. So I pulled my radiator, and when we went to McCall, this guy soldered my radiator. like he had nothing else to do on a Saturday. He's the guy that loaned me the tools, just gave me all this Craftsman tools, say have at it. He watched me, he kind of supervised me as I took my Jeep apart to get the shroud off the radiator and everything. And then he was there to watch me reinstall everything and made sure it worked. The guy knew some mechanical tricks, so it was amazing. I called everybody after we left and thanked them, and I gave the guy $100 that Lonnie had gotten from his uncle for our trip. We gave it to the guy who, welded the Jeep radiator together, and he was so grateful. And we called Jeff at the motel and told him, how kind he was and how, just grateful we were for, how he reached out to help us, and not even knowing us. So these people from Idaho that live there in Riggins, friendliest people on the earth. And then Brad, the guy that had his truck, he let me drive so he could actually drink a couple of beers. He was from Twin Falls. He was there for the weekend to go fishing. And since he caught his fish, he's like, I'm done. And we just, talked hunting and fishing and trapping all the way there and back. And so now it's 11 p.m. Lonnie and I just got a motel, and we are south of Boise in a place called like Mountain House, and we're like 100 miles away from Twin Falls. So tomorrow morning, 14 hours, we're back home in Phoenix. So it's been a very interesting trip, and I'll log off from here and take my first shower in 5 or 6 days. All right, we survived.